When Jared Kushner left his family's real estate company to go work for his father-in-law at the White House, the Kushner company, of course, kept on going without him. They have made some changes since he has been away. Most recently, there's new reporting today that the Kushner companies have just hired a new team to handle their public and media relations. Specifically, they've just hired a big firm that specializes in crisis and issues management. You know the gigantic multi-billion-dollar scandal over Volkswagen systematically cheating on emissions testing for their diesel cars? Remember that? The Kushner family real estate company just hired them. The crisis management people who handled that disaster, they'll now be working for the Kushners. Now, we don't know exactly what precipitated this decision, but there are some things going on, right? There's the detailed recent reporting about Jared's family dangling his connection to the administration and his role in the White House to lure Chinese investors to Kushner properties in exchange for the U.S. government giving those investors visas to live here. The Kushners have already gotten dinged for that. They have been served up a federal subpoena for promising those visas to potential Chinese investors. There's also the skyscraper the Kushners own on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan that is in serious and urgent need of new cash investors if the Kushners are going to be able to keep paying off the loans they took to buy the building. That search for urgent new money to cover that building, that has definitely involved discussions with a shadowy Chinese company believed to be linked to the Chinese government. It's also been the source of questions about why Jared Kushner took that meeting with a Putin-connected Russian banker during the transition and then kept that meeting a secret before finally disclosing it months later. The bank said at the time they were there to discuss business with Jared. The White House says, no, that definitely wasn't it. There's also a very large loan from Deutsche Bank, which Jared Kushner received right before the election, even though it wasn't initially disclosed on his financial disclosure form. The loan was large. It was apparently for hundreds of millions of dollars. Mr. Kushner reportedly personally guaranteed the loan himself, which makes it extra weird that he didn't report it on his financial disclosure. But what Jared Kushner used that Deutsche Bank money for was to buy another property from a Soviet-born businessman they call the King of Diamonds. The King of Diamonds, Lev Leviev, is described widely as being very, very close to Russian President Vladimir Putin. There's also detailed recent reporting on the Kushner companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate investing in downtown Manhattan with money provided by the Steinmetz family. They've been in the news recently because their finances are now tied up in legal proceedings in at least four countries, including the United States, because of allegations of bribery and money laundering. That family, quite recently, put a lot of money in the Kushner company accounts, all in a very short period of time.
Looking at, first, whether there are connections between Russia and the campaign, but he may also look at any matters that arise or may arise from that investigation. So putting together a financial investigation and then following those things to their logical conclusion is part of his mandate.
Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney in Michigan. Really appreciate your time tonight, Barbara. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks very much.
All right, we got much more ahead tonight. Stay with us.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Well, the pageantry of the opening ceremony is now done. Now it's time to get down to business in Pyeongchang as the Winter Olympics get into gear and everybody starts competing.
Yeah, Coy Wire is live from South Korea this morning, and if there is an inspirational story somewhere, it's on his radar, and he's going to find it.
Yes.
Coy.
Yeah, we're going to bring that to you in a moment. Good morning to you. Happy Saturday. Welcome to South Korea and perhaps one of the quaintest places in Winter Olympics history, Pyeongchang, a tiny, obscure, laid-back mountain county of about 43,000 people in what some call the Alps of Asia. The 35,000-seat stadium was rocking for opening ceremony, though. Team USA, they were led out by four-time Olympian luger Erin Hamlin, just the 6th American female ever to be named flag bearer at a Winter Games. And despite below freezing temperatures here at the time, it felt like it was in the 20s, Tonga's flag bearer was turning up the heat. 34-year-old Pita Tafutafua, a cross-country skier, strutted out without a shirt, a traditional Tongan mat, a whole lot of baby oil, setting the internet ablaze once again, just as he did, you may remember, at the Summer Games in Rio, where he competed in Taekwondo. This is a guy who had never even seen snow until about 2 years ago, but here he is now, the first Tongan ever to qualify a Winter and Summer Games. Now, allow us to introduce you to the positive vibe and always smiling Mame Baine, 18 years old. She loves chemistry, wants to be a chemical engineer. She graduates high school after the Olympics, doesn't even have her driver's license yet. But here in Pyeongchang, she and teammate Erin Jackson have become the first female African-American speed skaters in Olympic history. Mame, she came to the U.S. from Ghana with her dad at 5 years old, and when her dad showed her ice for the very first time, Mame fell in love. Her infectious attitude just may make you fall in love with her too. Listen.
I love having people smile and laugh, because if you're smiling and laughing, then that means you're happy. And being happy, especially in this world with everything that's going on, I think it's like the best present you can ever give to anyone every single day.
Mame's competed in the 1,500 meter, and she just qualified for the 500 meter moments ago. Vice President Mike Pence was there to see it with South Korea's President Moon. She even got a congratulatory tweet from the Vice President, which he also said that he and his wife will be watching and rooting her on, and we all will, Mame. Good luck to you and the rest of Team USA, all the Olympians who are watching their dreams come true here at the Olympic Games.
All right. Have fun, Koi Wai, there in Pyeongchang. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Koi.
Countering her allegations against him, but the White House is not even really wanting to engage with this after the fallout over Rob Porter, the fact that they took hours to finally push him out after these allegations surfaced. Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah released a statement last night saying, "We immediately confronted the staffer, he denied the allegations, and he resigned today." The White House really wants to get ahead of this because the Rob Porter scandal has been so damaging to them. But the David Sorensen allegations seem to be continuing to unfold. That story just breaking overnight.
All right, Abby Phillip for us there at the White House. Abby, thank you.
So let's talk to Politico reporter Daniel Littman, CNN political commentator Alice Stewart, and national security attorney Mark Zaid. Thank you all for being here. We certainly appreciate it. Mark, I want to start with you and get back to this memo, and then we'll get back to the other happenings there in just a moment. But you told our producer that the president's decision about not releasing this memo was a poor political move, but the proper legal intel decision. Are you saying that his hands were tied here?
No, actually, and this whole process has been politicized, unfortunately, by both sides. Neither memo should have been released, although I can't wait to read both of them, obviously already haven't read the GOP memo. But there is a process by which Congress can undertake this oversight review, and it should, but this isn't the way to go. And it's interesting, as some leaders are saying that the president is obstructing justice by not releasing the Democratic memo. I think one can actually make the argument that he was obstructing justice, not necessarily legally, but at least politically, by releasing the GOP memo and not releasing both. He is following what his FBI and Justice Department is saying, which is there is classified information in these memos, and it would harm national security to release this second one, this much more lengthier memo.
Right. So, Daniel, what are the Dems planning to do from this point on?
They're going to keep, raising foul. They say it's blatant hypocrisy on Trump's part. And then the issue is it hurts his PR more because it just keeps this in the news cycle. And remember, when he released the first memo, it backfired on him because a lot of people, even Republicans, said there was nothing in this that justified this huge, to-do, because it didn't really reveal huge wrongdoing at the FBI. It kind of made Devin Nunes look bad.
So, Alice, how plausible is it that this Democratic memo will ever see public eye?
I think we'll see parts of it. I think it's important to keep in mind the president didn't say he's not going to release it at all. He just said not in its current form. And he has directed the DOJ to work with members of the House Intel Committee to redact pertinent pieces of information that reveal classified details and sources and methods and ongoing investigation. And I think that's the proper thing to do from a security standpoint. And let's not lose sight of the fact that there's the potential possibility that Democrats strategically put information in there that they knew was classified, that they knew would need to be redacted, and so it would give the appearance that the Trump administration is trying to hide something or do something to stand in in the way of transparency. So that's a factor as well. But I do believe that the administration wants full transparency with regard to this situation. They are frustrated with some of the methods that the DOJ and the FBI carried out with regard to obtaining these FISA warrants, and they want the American people to know that. Now, if we come back in a week or so and the Democrat report is fully redacted, then we'll have another conversation. But right now, I think let's just wait and see what the next version looks like.
But we should also remember that the House Intelligence Committee voted unanimously to release the Democratic memo, and so they were aware of what was in it, and they still they still voted to tell Trump to release it.
To release it. Very good point. I want to move on to this development overnight of speechwriter David Sorensen vehemently denying that he abused his ex-wife, as she is alleging. He, in fact, said that he was the victim of repeated violence, not of her. And according to the White House, he immediately resigned. Daniel, what are you hearing about where this came from? This seemed to come out of nowhere, and the very swift reaction from the White House as opposed to what we saw with Rob Portman.
Yeah, I think with Rob Porter, he was so closely tied to Trump. He worked with him on a daily basis and was also a close ally of General Kelly, which is why Kelly didn't want to throw him under the bus. David Sorensen is someone that most people in Washington don't even know about. He was a lower-level speechwriter, and the allegations came after the Washington Post was poking around. And it's pretty bad what he was alleged to have done. He drove over his ex-wife, in his car. He burned a cigarette on her. And so I think the White House wants to try to look at everyone in the administration to see who has ex-wives that they've abused. And we still have the security clearances that over 30 to 40 people don't have permanent clearances because of issues in their background, which is a troubling thing for this White House.
Exactly. And I just want to clarify here with David Sorensen, the accusations that you were talking about, those are alleged, that this is not a man who's been convicted. But I want to listen here because this took a lot of people by surprise. What the president said yesterday about Rob Porter.
He says he's innocent, and I think you have to remember that. He said very strongly yesterday that he's innocent. So you'll have to talk to him about that, but we absolutely wish him well. Did a very good job while he was at the White House.
So, Mark, the allegations from two ex-wives are hard to fathom. A lot of people say, yes, he's innocent because there is no proof. Now, of course, proof has come out in terms of the picture of the black eye with the first ex-wife. But the second ex-wife, she had filed a criminal complaint. There was proof out there. How or why is it, do you think, that this White House held on to Rob Porter as long as they did?
Well, isn't that one of the questions to look at? And one of the things we really need to find out about is when did the White House and certainly the senior staff know, not only within the general counsel's office from a suitability standpoint, but the Office of Security in adjudicating Porter's security clearance. And now these individuals have interim clearances. There's nothing wrong with that. That routinely happens. They have full access when they have an interim clearance, but there hasn't yet been an adjudication of their security clearance to maintain for whatever term of length it would be, if it's at a secret or top secret, or even SCI, which is within the intelligence community. And the question is, when this information is obtained, what then does the White House do about it? Now, these are allegations, even though we have some physical proof at least by the photographs, and there's court proceedings. But, when you're looking at the White House and senior level positions, you're going to hope, just as the president has said, to have the best and brightest. And one has to question whether that is the case, no matter how valuable these individuals may be.
So real quickly, Mark, if somebody isn't formally convicted, they're seen as fair game to work at the White House?
Well, obviously that can be at any place. And with respect to at least security clearances, people can mitigate them. I mean, you can have committed crimes in the past and have a security clearance. I accomplish that for people all the time. It depends on the facts of the case. And I would just at least caution, I'm not defending anybody in the White House here, but I would caution people to rush to judgment without knowing both sides of everything. Because clearances, not suitability, but clearances are about mitigation. And we haven't heard both sides. But that said, there's a high standard to work in the White House, and you have to question when you've known about it from what we know publicly for months at a time, and you see those photographs, why is someone like that still working in the White House?
Real quickly, Alice, give me your take.
Well, I think what's notable in that tape you just played from the president is not what he said, but what he didn't say. He didn't say one word about these women. He didn't say one word about the fact that domestic violence shouldn't be tolerated in any form. He didn't say one word about, I hope these women have a great career, and he didn't say one word about it's sad for these women, and that's unfortunate. He had the opportunity to make a real statement that domestic violence shouldn't be tolerated anywhere, and certainly not in the White House, and I think that's unfortunate, because this is a time more than any time where we need to make sure that women can have their voices heard and actions have consequences, and we cannot have people with personal lives like this have public servant positions that are compromising to our country.
Yeah, sometimes what you don't say seems to speak the loudest, no doubt. Daniel Littman, Alice Stewart, Mark Zaid, we appreciate you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Let's talk about the diplomacy at the Olympics. Kim Jong-un sent his sister to South Korea. She has now invited the South Korean president to North Korea for talks as the two countries, play as this unified ice hockey team. CNN's Coy Wire is live from the site of the Olympics. Coy, good morning.
Good morning, Victor. Coming up, we're going to tell you about a family who's going to watch one daughter compete for Team USA in hockey, and she'll have to face her sister, possibly, who's playing for that unified Korean hockey team. An incredible story coming up right here on New Day.
Also, you're going to hear from the first African-American hockey player to ever take the ice for Team USA. How is this milestone affecting him? His friends and family are cheering him on.
I can't believe this is my son that is, one, going to the Olympics and breaking the color barrier. I mean, he's making history, and I'm so proud of him.
An historical moment. This year's Winter Olympics is not just about sportsmanship on the ice, but also a diplomacy that's happening right now. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un invited the South Korean president to visit North Korea, extended this historic invitation through his sister, Kim Yo-jong.
Now, she's visiting South Korea for the games, had lunch with the South Korean president earlier, and CNN's Will Ripley is live from South Korea. You broke the story, Will, I know, about this historic invitation. What do you know about what was said, and help us understand the significance of this here?
Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un, was sent on a diplomatic mission here. This was a deliberate strategy on the part of the North Korean leader to really try to warm relations with the South, and it's a strategy that appears to be working because she delivered that letter in a blue essentially envelope or a leather case to South Korea's president, inviting him to travel to Pyongyang as soon as possible to talk about inter-Korean relations. And President Moon was quick to accept that invitation, saying he wants to engage with the North Koreans. He thinks that talking is the way to go, also saying that he thinks North Korea and the United States should talk. But that seems unlikely given the tone from Vice President Pence, who was on the ground here blasting the North Korean regime during a number of different public appearances, including with North Korean defectors joined by Fred Warmbier, the father of Otto Warmbier, who died 6 days after being released from North Korean custody. All of these leaders were sitting together in the VIP box at the opening ceremony. It was a tense, kind of awkward-looking situation, and Vice President Pence said he was hoping that South Korea would disengage with North Korea, stop talking, and start putting on the pressure to denuclearize after the Olympics are over. But clearly, President Moon not taking that advice, instead saying that he is willing to travel and to meet with Kim Jong-un. So mission accomplished as far as sending his sister here to South Korea to get that offer made and accepted.
Another form of this diplomacy that we're seeing between the North and the South is this unified hockey team. We're seeing them, saw them last night in that Parade of Nations. What can you tell us about this team?
Well, the team was certainly a controversial decision here in South Korea because by incorporating North Korean players into the team, some of the South Korean players who've been training for the Olympics for years have to sit on the bench during these games. But nonetheless, again, this is another really a PR win for Kim Jong-un because President Moon Jae-in agreed to attend the game with Kim Jong-un's sister and also with the North Korea's ceremonial head of state, Kim Yong-nam. And so you have all of them. They've just arrived within the last few minutes. They are sitting together, watching the game, cheering together. Another public show of really legitimacy for the North Korean regime, not the isolation that the United States is calling for. And so sports, while they do have an opportunity to bring countries together, at least in this particular situation right now, it seems as if what the North is trying to do, and perhaps succeeding to some extent, is to try to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul because South Korea not taking the advice of the U.S. administration.
All right, Will Ripley for us there in Pyeongchang. Will, thank you so much.
Of course, this whole dynamic there in South Korea is bringing some pretty intriguing storylines, and one of them is about two sisters who are competing for different countries in ice hockey.
Yeah, one of them is on that team we just talked about. Coy Wise there live in South Korea as well with more on the Brandt sisters. Coy.
Hi, Victor. Hi, Chrissy. So you can imagine as a parent to have one child qualify for an Olympic team, but then to have two daughters, and they both qualify in the same sport, but competing for different countries. That's the case for Greg and Robin Brandt. Their daughter Hannah made Team USA, and their daughter Marissa, who they adopted at 4 months old, will compete for that unified Korean team under her birth name, Yoon Jung Park. Hannah and Marissa both pinching themselves over this absolutely surreal moment in their lives. Listen to this.
Now we're going together and get to experience everything for the first time together, which is very special, and not many people can say they've done that with their sister.
The coolest thing about going to the Olympics together is I'm going to be walking around, I'll be at the dining room, and my sister's going to be there. Most people can't say that.
All right, two events coming up today you might want to check out. Snowboard men's slopestyle, where 17-year-old Red Gerard from Cleveland hoping to medal in his Olympic debut. Also, alpine skiing men's downhill is going on as well. Some serious speed there. Now, Hannah and Marissa, they both will be playing this weekend. Marissa right now, it's unlikely that the two teams will face each other during the games, but Victor, Christy, could you only imagine if they do?
I'd be sitting in the middle of the seats, you know, one side here, and here's me. Here's the mom. All right, Coy Wire, it's so good to see you. Thank you.
All right, a memo denied, more staff departures, a wild week in the markets. We're going to take a look at all that's happened and what that means for you and the week ahead.
All righty, rise and shine. It is Saturday morning, and we've been waiting for you. I'm Christy Paul.
I'm Victor Blackwell. Good morning to you.
So President Trump is denying the release of a Democratic memo on the Russia probe, saying that there's just too much sensitive information in it, even though the Republicans got their memo released just last week, and that was against the wishes of the FBI.
Now, on the same day, more departures from the administration. The third person in line at the Justice Department, her name is Rachel Brand. She is leaving her position. The reporting is she'll be heading to become one of the corporate attorneys for Walmart. There's also the second White House official in just a few days accused of domestic abuse, also gone. He denies the allegations from his ex-wife, who says that he says he was the victim of abuse during their marriage. The deputy chief of staff is out of that position, heading to another one. And the chief of staff, John Kelly, who has not been on the job for very long, says that he would be willing to follow them if that's what the president wants from him.
So yesterday's announcement about the memo and the resignations, not a great end to a pretty chaotic week at the White House, and one that put the Trump administration squarely in another PR crisis. So let's talk about how we got here. It started Monday when President Trump insisted Democrats were, quote, un-American and treasonous for refusing to stand and applaud a State of the Union address. That afternoon, while President Trump was touting the economic benefits of his tax plan during a televised speech, the Dow took its first tumble of the week, down 1,175 points. That was the worst point drop in history. On Tuesday, the president asked the Pentagon for a large-scale military parade. The Pentagon is reviewing potential dates for that, but The president's request didn't sit well with lawmakers on either side of the aisle. In fact, here's what Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin told CNN.
I do think of Fleet Week that goes on in the New York City area and how great of an event that is for all the sailors and whomever participate in that event. And I don't believe that we should have tanks and nuclear weapons going down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Allegations of domestic abuse surfaced on Wednesday when the Daily Mail reported White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter verbally and physically abused his two ex-wives. Now, Chief of Staff John Kelly defended Porter, praising his integrity and honor. After the publication of photos of Colby Holderness's black eye, however, Kelly issued another statement, essentially doubling down, though, on his defense of Porter. Then on Thursday, it was revealed top officials, including White House counsel Don McGahn, knew about the allegations against Porter for at least a year. That same day, the stock market tumbled again, 1,033 points, making this the worst week for the stock market in 2 years. And then you had the government shutdown. But it's all right, by Friday morning, Congress had passed its spending bill and the president signed it into law, effectively reopening the government.
All right, joining me now to talk about all that's happened, and that has been a lot. Daniel Lippman, reporter and co-author of the Politico Playbook, and Alice Stewart, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist. Welcome back to both of you. Alice, let me start with you. And this reporting that General Kelly has spoken with other White House officials that he'd be willing to leave the White House, leave this position as Chief of Staff if the president wants him to. No official offer of resignation yet, and Hogan Gidley, the deputy press secretary there, said that he hasn't officially offered his resignation. Would that behoove the president to accept that resignation, show there's a degree of accountability for this entire Rob Porter mess, and try to turn the page back to legislation, back to doing the work of the American people?
It's clearly the president's call, and I think it remains to be seen what will happen. Look, I think no matter where you go, there you are. No matter who the president leaves or sends from this administration, we're still going to have the same people at the top, and I think that's something that we need to consider. And look, talking with folks at the White House yesterday, they say it's business as usual. Chief of Staff Kelly was overseeing a meeting. He was there as Chief of Staff, and for all intents and purposes, they don't see things changing, at least anytime soon. I think we have to keep in mind he was brought to the White House to restore some discipline and some order and streamlining the information that gets to the president and some that leaves the Oval Office, and he's done a good job with that. And certainly what we're finding out this week, in my view, we're finding out that General Kelly is much more like Donald Trump on the issues than we first thought. But with regard to his future there and what he will be doing in the near term, that's completely up to the president to decide. But after this week, with regard to what happened with Rob Porter, I think the best statement out of the White House was from Raj Shah, saying that they could have done things better.
And apparently the president didn't like that Raj Shah. That's the reporting from CNN that the president was unhappy with that. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think it's very rare to see a person, helming up the White House press briefing and admitting that they did something wrong. That's something you used to see in previous White Houses, but I know in the Politico newsroom, our jaws dropped when Raj Shah said something like that. And then he said, Rob Porter, he was fired, and the official line up until then was, he had stepped down, he had resigned, and so, and that was Raj Shah's first press briefing, and so I think, he hasn't been, taught to be the best spinner in terms of, polishing things that aren't the best for the White House.
Yeah, that might have been what that, and this is just speculation, that 2+ hour delay in the news conference on Thursday, what he should say there. And, you bring up an interesting point here about jaws dropping, Daniel. Yours in the newsroom there, Politico, was in response to what Raj Shah said. There were a lot of dropped jaws yesterday in the remarks from the president when he talked about Rob Porter. But this is, in defending him, this is part of a pattern of this White House. Let's just put up on the screen, and we put this together. This is the list of alleged assaulters and abusers that the White House has defended. Rob Porter now, Roy Moore out of Alabama, allegations against former chief strategist Steve Bannon, Corey Lewandowski as well, Bill O'Reilly, Roger Ailes, and there's a mistake here because there's one face missing, and that's the President of the United States himself, and more than a dozen women who have accused him of sexual assault. Alice Stewart, there is a pattern here.
No doubt. And whether we are talking about sexual harassment, sexual assault, or domestic abuse, there is a pattern in this White House. First off is to downplay the allegations, and then they will defend the man who is accused of this activity, and they will try and denounce the woman and denigrate her. And that is very problematic. I think in this day and age, more than any, we need to give these women a voice. We need to believe these women. We need to let them have the opportunity to tell their stories. And also, we need to let the American people know that there are consequences for these actions, and character counts. And if you have things that happen in your private life that are questionable or in some cases abhorrent, it should stop you from serving in public office, and this is an opportunity for this White House to make an important statement on that and change the history they have with regard to this kind of view and a response to these kind of activities.
Daniel, I want to turn to another revelation that's come out of this Rob Porter scandal that CNN's reporting now that 30 to 40 White House officials and political appointees of the Trump administration do not have, they're working without security clearances. We know that Rob Porter had this interim security clearance. We know that senior advisor to the president and son-in-law Jared Kushner, after a year in the White House, still does not have full security clearance. Do we know who else is working under this? And remind viewers just how troublesome this is, or the dangers and problems this could cause.
So I'm sure both of us wish we had the full list of those 30 to 40 people just to see, exactly, who has not passed the FBI background check. And I think it is troubling because, when you have the FBI and other people doing those investigations, find things that are problematic that could leave people open to blackmail if that information came out, that hurts our national security potentially. With Jared Kushner, he worked on issues related to China when his own sister was in China last year, trying to drum up support for the family company.
And he has been, given this nickname of being the secretary of everything. So his hands are in a lot of pots around the administration. We're running short on time. I hate to jump in there, but Daniel Littman, thanks so much. Alice Stewart, thank you.
Thanks,
Christy, to you.
All righty, so the U.S. hasn't won gold in hockey since the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Who could forget that one? The question is, what are they going to do this year? You're going to hear from an athlete who's going to try to make that happen, and he's already making history on his own.
For the first time in decades, Boston University is sending a hockey player to the Winter Olympics, and Jordan Greenway is already making history before competition even starts.
With Greenway trying to get him started the right way. Here's Hickey, backhander, gets his own rebound, and he scores! Just like that!
Pro hockey scouts say Boston University junior Jordan Greenway is good enough to play in the NHL. He's 6'5", 230 pounds, strong, fast, and smart. But regardless of a professional sports future, he's already making history. 20 years old, he has some big skates to fill. The last BU Terriers on Team USA played in 1980 and pulled off the storied Miracle on Ice victory over the then Soviet Union. It's also the last time the U.S. men's hockey team won gold.
I just hope that I can go over there, with the guys and, build on their legacy.
And as the only African-American player on this year's U.S. men's hockey team, Jordan is building a legacy of his own.
Go, 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 go.
His two biggest fans could not be prouder. BU head coach David Quinn and his mom, Shannon Sullivan. What do you see and what do you feel when you see him on the ice?
It's something that I never dreamed of for him growing up and coming from a small town where we are.
Jordan has come a long way from Canton, New York.
I was put on skates at a young age, probably, 2, 3 years old. A lot of my family members played hockey. My uncles, my cousins, they all played. There's a rink every 2 miles, so I was just kind of next in line, and I continued to play.
And he continued through youth leagues and prep school in Minnesota. He even won gold twice at the World Championship.
Every time you come out with a win and you hear your national anthem playing, and you see your flag going up, that's a pretty cool experience, one that doesn't get old.
Win or lose in Pyeongchang, Jordan is single-handedly changing the face of Olympic hockey. More than being the only African-American hockey player on this year's U.S. team, he's breaking a nearly century-old color barrier as the first African-American to represent U.S. hockey at the Olympics ever.
To be honest, I didn't know I was breaking that color barrier. I didn't find out for a while. But, I think it's great.
I can't believe this is my son that is, one, going to the Olympics and breaking the color barrier. I mean, he's making history, and I'm so proud of him.
I'm the first African American to be able to play hockey, for the United States at the Olympics, but hopefully I'm the first of many. Hopefully, these kids go out, try something different.
That's a responsibility. Will he live up to it?
I think Jordan's personality and his likability and his smile, and he's 6'5", and he's got Hollywood good looks, and he's a heck of a hockey player. You add all that up, I think someone of his stature, not only being a great hockey player, but if you're just a casual sports fan, you're going to be interested to listen to what he has to say. And I think the significance of that will be impactful to the sport of hockey for a long time.
Is there any additional pressure with being the first?
I don't think so. I think just going to the Olympics, you're representing a pretty big, you're representing the whole United States, and for me, I know that I'm going to go over there and continue to work hard, put in all the efforts that I have to get me this far, and I think that's really all anyone can ask.
Greenway trying to get him started in the right way.
And of course, we all will be pulling for him. The U.S. Olympic Committee says that this is the most diverse Winter Olympics team that the U.S. has ever sent to the games. Next Wednesday, you can watch Jordan Greenway and the men's hockey team take the ice, and go to CNN.com for more of Jordan's story.
And listen, take a look at your screen here. That's an Israeli fighter pilot bailing out after coming under anti-aircraft fire in the skies over Syria. We're going to tell you what happened. Stay close. Circle it. Next Wednesday. People spend $1.8 billion, in complete on sweets for their sweetheart. In this week's Food is Fuel, though, nutritionist Lisa Dreyer tells us, listen, not all chocolate is created equal.
Depending on the type, chocolate can actually be good for you and eaten every day, as long as you don't overdo it. That's because of compounds in cocoa called flavanols. At high levels, these antioxidants can help lower blood pressure, cholesterol, and the risk of diabetes. Dark chocolate contains the highest amount of cocoa flavanols. Milk chocolate has less, while white chocolate has none. Dark chocolate also tends to have less sugar than milk chocolate. Generally speaking, the higher the cacao content, the more flavanols. So look for dark chocolate that is at least 60% cacao. When possible, go for natural cocoa instead of Dutch process, which reduces some antioxidants. Beyond flavanols, cocoa also contains minerals such as calcium, copper, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. Of course, portion size matters, so try to limit your daily treat of dark chocolate to 1 ounce.
The Las Vegas shooter who carried out the deadliest shooting in modern history had anti-anxiety drugs in his system. Stephen Paddock's autopsy also showed he lied, or rather died, apologize for that, of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
After he opened fire on thousands during a country music concert last year, of course, and 58 people died. Almost 500 were injured, and police found Paddock dead inside his hotel room at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. Authorities haven't released a motive for the massacre, but Paddock was known as a gambler who visited Las Vegas casinos frequently.
Our breaking news this morning, Israel says an Israeli fighter, the fighter jet, has crashed after coming under massive anti-aircraft fire from Syrian forces. And Israel admitted today its forces launched attacks on Iranian targets in Syria.
CNN senior international correspondent Ben Wiedemann is live from Beirut. Ben, kind of walk us through what we know happened this morning.
What we understand, what we're hearing from Israeli officials is that early in the morning, an Iranian-made drone entered Israeli airspace. That was shot down by an Israeli helicopter. Soon afterwards, Israeli aircraft targeted a position in central Syria. It's called the T4 air base near Palmyra, where they went to take out the launching system that sent this drone toward Israeli airspace. Now, during this air raid, apparently some of the Israeli aircraft encountered a good deal of anti-aircraft fire, and one F-16 was damaged, it appears, and when it re-entered Israeli airspace, it crashed. We understand the pilots are still alive. One is in critical condition. Now, following that, the Israelis launched 12 air raids around Damascus in retaliation, and several hours afterwards, another smaller air raid. Now, this is hugely significant. It represents a dramatic deterioration in the situation. Now, for the last several years, Israel has launched dozens of airstrikes within Syrian territory, normally targeting, they say, arms shipments from Syria to Hezbollah here in Lebanon. But oftentimes they simply do not comment on those reports. Today they're being quite explicit, giving more information about today's incidents than they have over the dozens of incidents that have taken place over the last few years. But this is the first time in decades that the Syrians have been able to bring down, it appears, an Israeli aircraft. Now, there's calls for restraint on many sides, but the situation is, even by the standards of Syria, extremely tense.
All right, Ben Wiedemann, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it.
All right, the next hour of your new day coming up after a quick break.